Books are sort of a singularly powerful artifact or tool, whatever word you want to use, that impacts people really deeply and that can shape one person's mind or way of thinking or way of experiencing a certain thing. It also can start a movement. It also can be the foundation of entire schools of thought. It's one of the great joys of my life to be able to help support that, to help people to publish books that then go on to touch the lives and help thousands, maybe even millions more people. So it's a really incredible, magical thing.
Well, Ally, thank you very much for joining me on Success Matters podcast. You're an author, a coach, a publisher, and so you love words, right? You love words, you love reading, you love writing. You told me when we prepared for this call that you learned to read at the age of 3. So
Yeah.
how did you learn to read at such a young age?
Well, I certainly don't remember it. I was very small. So the family lore is that I loved being read to. I was fascinated by books, and I would constantly beg my parents to read to me. And they did, like most parents, read to us after, getting ready for bed and certain times of the day. And I was just always begging for more. I just really loved to hear the stories from the books. And I was fascinated with this object, that a story could kind of come out of.
Right.
So, yeah, my mom says I basically just got fed up with her not reading enough stories to me. And so I started trying to learn it on my own. And she was an elementary school teacher. So she, had a skill set as far as teaching kids to read. And I showed the interest, and there we go.
There you go. But yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating because I learned to read at quite a young age as well. I'm pretty sure that I was 3. That's what my family said. And much like you, I used to enjoy flicking through like little books and, fairy tale books, really, primarily, not massive novels or so. And I was taught phonetics actually by my sister. She kind of taught me how to read through that, and got a great interest. But the interesting thing about it is, the age of 7, you made a decision. You wanted to join Simon & Schuster. Like, who at the age of 7 even knows who they are?
I have no idea where it came from, honestly. It's just another one of those stories. My suspicion is that I was asking a lot of questions about where books come from because I was so interested in books. And I became fascinated when presumably one of my parents explained to me what a book publisher was. And probably what happened is I just had a book in the house that was from Simon & Schuster. And, in my little, child's brain just kind of got it into my head that that's the publisher I should work for. So yeah, I was making little construction paper and crayon books and handing them out to friends and neighbors and calling myself a publisher and telling people that I wanted to grow up to be an editor at Simon & Schuster one day.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So from the age of 7, you kind of had developed this identity as being an editor. And what was people's reactions as you were handing out these little handmade cards and saying, I'm a publisher?
Yeah, I mean, of course, everyone thought it was adorable, right?
Yeah.
It's a fun family thing. But I don't think anybody was really surprised. Even as I got older, I was always a really verbal kid. I was very into writing. I was very into reading. And it just never changed. It was always a passion of mine. So I don't think anybody who really knew me or my family was very surprised about it.
Mm-hmm. So then moving from that kind of elementary school to junior school level, how did you then create that path to take you to what actually eventually became a role in Simon & Schuster?
Yeah. I really played it out, I think, on a lot of different levels. So there's the basic academic level. Of course, I was a very good English student. I was really active and engaged in all of my classes. I was a pretty good student in general, but English in particular was always a favorite. I was always involved in we had advanced reader clubs in elementary school. So there's some special programs to help kids who were a little further along read some works that were maybe a little above our age range to encourage us to keep building our vocabulary and learning. So I did all of that kind of thing. My parents were very supportive. They were very good as far as, being really involved. I mentioned my mom was an educator. So of course she really understood the importance of homework and enrichment and assignments at home. But where it really started to pick up was high school. So in high school, we had a literary magazine, a creative literary magazine that I was on the editorial board for. And I became the editor in chief of our newspaper after working as a reporter for the newspaper for a few years. So I would continue to sort of build up that connection and that love and that experience. And going into college, I just kept it up. I got my first freelancing for pay job writing for websites while I was in school. I got
Okay.
an internship for a small regional publisher. I was in college in upstate New York, and we were very lucky to have a small regional publisher located in the area. I got an internship there and worked there for about a year. And then, of course, got that job at Simon and Schuster when I graduated, which was really just an amazing manifestation of a lifelong dream.
So when you went for your interview, did you say I've been dreaming of this since the age of 7?
I did. I did. I told them that I'd always wanted to be an editor at Simon and Schuster, and I mean it's a charming story, so
Yeah.
it didn't hurt.
And I'm assuming you majored in English for your degree?
Oh yes, yes, of course, English and creative writing. I had a minor in philosophy just for fun, but uh,
Okay.
yeah, mostly words, and then I went on to get a master's degree in English and creative writing as well.
All right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, philosophy is a good minor to have alongside that because the
I thought
power
so.
of language, the way philosophy kind of makes you question every word and the meaning of everything, it's probably a really good marriage to have as kind of your degree.
Yeah, yeah, I think they worked really well together. And one of the things about philosophy that I found really compelling was um, that it was an entire field that sort of exemplified this belief I already had, which is that books can change the world, books can change lives.
Ooh.
And philosophy is riddled with these great works that many people have never read and maybe have never even heard of, but yet their lives are still touched by and influenced by the ideas in those books in so
Hmm.
many different ways. So philosophy like is one of those things you can look at in a very tangible way and say, yeah, these are books that have quite literally shaped our experience of the world, even now, in some cases hundreds of years later. So that really attracted me.
Yeah. Are there any books that you would say have changed your world and shaped your life?
Oh gosh, so many books. Maybe not quite in the philosophy bent, but I always like to mention The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, which is a favorite sort of mindset business
Hmm.
book of mine. I always go back to that one because I found it so transformative in the way that I thought and felt about myself.
Right. Yeah. In fact, actually, talking of Gay Hendricks, he's also written a book with another author whose name slipped my mind called Unconscious Luck. And the premise of it, and actually the painting that's behind me, is based on the
Beautiful.
premise is that luck is all around us, like the wind. You just need to make the sails to catch it. And he kind of gives us all these examples in the book of how luck comes to people when they have created the environment to get
Right.
that luck. So yeah, it's a great segue to that. I mean, that the painting behind me is me on a cloud with the sails, catching the winds of luck. And yeah, riding those winds, I suppose, the trade winds of luck.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So when it coming back to kind of like a philosophy type of thing, one of the things that I've kind of been learning about more recently is things like Stoicism and the kind of Greek
Mhm.
philosophies and Greek philosophers, which, as you say, really do still play into our world today. So how have you kind of found that, and how have you incorporated that into your day-to-day work?
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know that I could identify specific philosophical principles, but I do think that my entire career is an expression of that idea I mentioned earlier, which is that books are sort of a singularly powerful uh, artifact or tool, whatever word you want to use, that impacts people really deeply and that can, shape one person's mind or way of thinking or way of experiencing a certain thing, but it also can start a movement. It also can be the foundation of entire schools of thought. And it's one of the great joys of my life to be able to help support that, to help people to publish books that then go on to touch the lives and help thousands, maybe even millions more people. So it's a really incredible, magical thing.
Mm. Yeah, it is. And just as you were talking about movements, I was kind of thinking of things like Mao Zedong's Little Red Book or Hitler's book, or which were not necessarily all great movements, right? But they're not
Right.
necessarily the best examples. But they did create movements, and they did
Yeah.
create, change in the world. In today's society, when we're looking at like, there's much more of that instant gratification that people are after, and scrolling and doom scrolling. What role will books play in today's society to create new movements and changes in the world?
Yeah, well, one book that I read not too long ago that I think is an example of a modern movement. I'm blanking on the woman's name, but the book is called Rest is Resistance.
Okay.
And it grew out of, so she had a community that she was already building, so she was already out doing the work, and then the book grew out of that. But in a nice sort of cyclical situation, the book has now helped her to get national visibility and to grow her movement even further. And the basic idea is that in this world in which human beings are in many ways treated as a cog of the machine, the big machine of capitalism, of the patriarchy, of whatever you want to call it, that to say no, my value is not in my productivity. I'm not on this earth to produce for you, right?
Hmm.
I need rest. My body needs rest. My mind, my soul. I need to take some time for myself. That very act is an act of resistance.
Right.
And so she writes this book about that idea and how that unfolds in different ways. And she holds these in-person meetings that are basically nap-ins. Like people
Okay.
come and they bring pillows and blankets and candles, and like she tells you to bring whatever makes you comfortable, and people get together in these environments, and she gives a little short talk, but the bulk of it is basically an hour, 2 hours of just resting, just people giving themselves the blessing of some time to just rest.
To just
uh,
be.
yeah, to just be. And so, sure, she uses social media. I'm sure she uses lots of other tools. She has a mailing list, of course. She does all of these other digital things, but it's really the book that's enabled her to take this into a really big, big movement and touch much more people than she was in the beginning, where it was a little bit more regional.
Right. Yeah. And have you been to one of these sessions?
I haven't found one near me yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely needed in today's society. We're on the go 24/7. There's all these things coming at us, all these dopamine hits as well through
Yeah,
social media. And you might feel like I'm not enough because you're seeing all this stuff, especially on social media.
yeah,
That makes you feel like I should be doing more. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. But actually, just be yourself, and
yeah,
just accept what you're doing. So
yeah.
no, that's fascinating. I'm gonna look that book up. Actually,
Oh, it's a
it's
wonderful book. I definitely
yeah,
encourage you to read it. And it's also a really great example, like speaking of social media, because so imagine her trying to get this message out without the book. Certainly you can do that through social media, but
yeah.
the difference in seeing a post on Instagram that says you should rest more and you're not just, the value of what you produce, you kind of see that and you think, oh, yeah, that's cool. Like that resonates. That's true. And then you're immediately distracted and on to the next thing because that's how social media works. Whereas when you have a book, that's a minimum of 6 to 8 hours for most typical books that somebody is really deeply immersed in your ideas and your thoughts and your systems or processes or teachings. That too, I think, makes books really special. It's one of the few sort of like media channels, if you will, that we have where you really have that kind of dedicated, quiet, intensive, intimate time to actually shape and transform somebody, not just a fleeting impression, but real
Mm.
change.
Yeah, yeah. And I never really thought of books in that way, but you're right. And as the author, you're having kind of like almost like a one-to-one conversation with that person, right? In their
Yeah,
space, in their world. So yeah, just never really thought of that.
exactly.
What sort of books do you help authors publish?
Well, we work with all kinds of books. We work with everything from children's picture books, middle grade YA, adult fiction, nonfiction, and memoir. These days I've been focusing a lot on nonfiction in particular. We're trying to help more experts, coaches, consultants, speakers, business owners, people who have something that they really want to teach other people about,
Hmm.
to help them figure out how a book fits into their business, not just as something they've always wanted to do, not just as something pretty they can put in their Zoom background that looks impressive, but how can a book actually function as a really powerful tool to help them achieve their business goals and dreams. And so we're helping them to figure out what book they should write, and then, of course, what that book needs to look like, and helping them to develop, publish, and market it.
Right. So what does that sort of process look like? So if I were to come to you and say, I've got a book in me, help me with this. What's the sort of starting point? How do you take that? What's wrong that journey?
So I do private consultations. That's usually where it starts, where we would sit and we would, really dig deeply into what is your business? Who do you work with? What are you trying to achieve? Where do you want to go next? How does the book sort of fit into all of the things that you're already doing and trying to do in the near to medium term future? Then from there, helping you to figure out precisely which of the various ideas. People always have lots of ideas. Ideas are never the problem. So helping you to figure out which of the ideas you probably already have is going to be the best one for you to pursue right now, given the goals that you're most interested in pursuing and getting accomplished. From that point, we have an outlining service, so we can help authors who need even more help from there, fleshing that idea out into an actual developed outline, not just a table of contents, but a more precise, this is what's in this chapter, here's this subsection, we're going to tell this story, more of a roadmap so that they have something they can take and go off and write. We don't offer a lot in that middle piece, but I have a really solid network of professional partners. So if you are someone who needs more than that, if that's not enough to write the book and you want a little bit more hand holding, I make referrals to book coaches, sometimes even ghostwriters, depending on the situation. And then the rest of our business, the real heart of our business, picks up once the draft is finished. So once we have a completed draft, we enter what we call the developmental stage, which is really the first type of editing. And that's where the editor gets a chance to sit down, ask those same questions again. Have they changed? Are we still aiming for the same things? Are we still aiming for the same people? And then go through the manuscript with the author and really help you understand what's working and what's not working and what needs to be done to fix those problems. So this is not a level where we're cleaning up punctuation or fixing spelling. This is a level where we're looking at, does the journey you're taking your reader on make sense? Are you making a clear and compelling promise to your target reader? Is your target reader the right target reader for the goals you want to accomplish? Really big content heavy questions. Once we've gotten through that stage and the book is basically the way that the author really wants it to be and it's ready to compete in the marketplace, we enter the production stage. Also includes a couple of types of editing, copy editing, which is more of that polishing, punctuation, spelling, usage, etc. That's also where we do the design. We create the covers, the interior design if it's a print book with back covers. And of course, from there, we move on into the actual act of publishing. There's a whole bunch of little administrative niggly bits and filing for copyright and all these kinds of things you have to do to make a file, that you upload available for sale as a book. Getting your account set up with distribution channels, so on and so forth. And then, of course, we also offer book marketing. So for those who need support in that area, we can help them to create a launch to help get the book out and give it its strongest chance.
That's quite a lot there. And as you're talking, I'm like thinking, wow, I hadn't really understood all of these aspects of writing a book. Because in my mind, you set yourself off somewhere, sit down, write a book, and there's your manuscript, and then you publish it, right? This kind of that process is kind of what's in my head, and I'm assuming that's in lots of people's heads when it comes to authoring. So what's the biggest mistake that most authors make when they start off on this journey?
Well, I love this question of the biggest mistake because there's a number of pretty big mistakes, honestly. I think book publishing is one of those endeavors that really is the whole you don't know what you don't know, because just like you said, so many people have an impression of what they think it looks like based on what you see in pop culture and movies, but also what we see the biggest publishers and authors go through. All we really see is, publisher X made a deal, gave author Y a whole bunch of money. Now here's their book a year or two later, and now we're telling you the book, right? So you don't get to see all that stuff behind the scenes. So I think one of the biggest mistakes is that authors simply don't know what they're getting into and sometimes have expectations or even real constraints that they sort of put on themselves that then become really challenging because they didn't know enough to make those decisions before they made them.
Right. And well, this probably explains also why so many books are unwritten and left on the shelf that started off, but then it's both the effort of writing, but then also all these things you didn't know about the publishing world that, you just made assumptions like I just did. Write it, send it somewhere to publish, and off you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And certainly you can do that, right? I mean, that's probably another really big mistake, especially these days. We have digital technology has made it so accessible and, in a sense, so easy to perform those basic functions. The ability to put words on a page, upload a file, press another button, and have a book available for sale on Amazon at its most basic sense is really simple. But of course, if you do that, it doesn't mean you have a book that's actually very good or that it's going to be marketable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all those aspects as well. So as you know, this podcast is called Success Matters, and it is very much born out of exploring what success means beyond what people see on Instagram or other social media channels. What does success mean to you?
To me personally or for my
Mhm.
clients?
Well, for you personally, and for
For
your
me,
clients as well, actually.
sure. Yeah, well, I mean, I think my vision of success has changed a lot over the years. So,
Mhm.
when I first started the business, I started it out of a desire to help people. I had been in big publishing. I had a lot of experience. I was doing book doctoring and ghostwriting for big publishers. So I had a lot of experience on both sides of the desk, as it were, as both a writer and as an acquiring editor. And around that time when I left Simon and Schuster and went out on my own, we were really starting to see self-publishing becoming a thing, like
Hmm.
really becoming a thing. And there were a lot of companies, a lot of scam artists coming up, just a lot of people diving into the space because it seemed like a huge gold rush, a huge opportunity. And I saw a lot of people getting taken advantage of, a lot of authors who, because they didn't know what they didn't know, were paying people who didn't have the right experience, who were falling for promises that were never going to be kept,
Hmm.
just really getting themselves into trouble. And it broke my heart. So I wanted to take what I was doing, which I was an editor, and I wanted to expand my team so that I could offer all the different things that self-publishing authors would need, so that once they formed a relationship with me and they trusted me, they didn't need to go somewhere else and start all over again and find 5 other people and just keep kind of going through that process. Instead, they could come to me. They trusted me. They knew I had the experience and the expertise to put together the team that they needed, and we could offer them whatever it was that they needed in one place. So for
Right.
me, success was really being able to offer those things to the right people, which we've done for hundreds of authors since then. And these days, I would say success really looks like keeping my team busy as they want to be and making sure everybody, feels like there's enough going on, but also not being stressed. I want everyone to have the same level of care. We really pride ourselves on offering that big publishing experience at a boutique level. So
Hmm.
all of our clients really get a lot of high touch, and I would never want to lose that. So success is, making enough money, everyone involved making enough money, working with great people, bringing great projects out into the world, and just sort of enjoying it.
Yeah, it must be very fulfilling actually when you have someone come to you and say, I've got this idea, to then take them through that journey and have a published product at the end, which is, yeah, marketed and people want to buy and engage with.
Yeah, it's incredibly fulfilling. I mean, like I said earlier, I really consider it an honor, and it's my way of having an impact, being able to help those people create those books that they'll go in to sell those books to have an impact on even more people. It just creates an amazing ripple effect, and it's really
Hmm.
a pleasure to be a part of that. Also, it's also, I think, the transformation that the client goes through, to be a part of someone's personal journey when they first come to us. They're nervous. Does anyone really care what I have to say? Is my book any good? Is this really going to be worth it? And then to see them come out the other end and have this book that starts generating results for their business and that they feel so proud of and excited about. It's really wonderful.
Does anyone come to you with just a book? So no business associated with it. They're simply wanting to get on that journey of becoming a full-time author, So in effect, that is their business, is just to write books. Do people come to you for that as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. More often we see that with novelists and memoirists. People who are writing other types of nonfiction usually have a business related to it.
Yes.
But although even in that case, not always, we've had clients over the years who just, they had some particular experience that they really want to share in a self-help book, let's say, or short business book, and they just put it out there almost as a gift to the universe. They're serious about it being good, but they don't really have any further plans beyond putting the book out. We do work with those authors sometimes too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. I have a tradition in my podcast that I ask a previous guest to ask a question for the next guest. My previous guest asked, and I'll have to read this out here. So one moment whilst I get that in front of me. So my previous guest asked, how can you make that distinction between what's holding you back and what could propel you forward?
Ooh. So I know for me, I'm a big fan of Stephen Pressfield's work. So if you've read like The War of Art and Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit, which is one of his book titles,
Okay.
great books.
Yeah.
He talks a lot about resistance, this idea of resistance with a capital R, as if it's almost an entity that we struggle with, that we fight against. I think that resistance is also often a clue. Going back to Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, right? There's a lot of emotional and psychological stuff that comes up when our brain thinks we're about to disrupt the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
For our brains, that's scary because evolutionarily that means risk. But for us in business, that's usually a sign that you're onto something good, right? You're about to have some kind of big breakthrough. You're about to have that big leap, get into that next level, and your brain's freaking out because everything's about to change. But that can often be a sign that instead of shying away from that and being scared, that's the sign to push forward and keep going because you're on the right track.
Right. Okay. So that nervousness you have to make that decision in a kind of business context or a work context is a good sign to have, and you should push through that because that's the thing that you're going to get to, rather than saying I'm not going to do it. Is that kind of, am I paraphrasing that correctly?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a gut check, but I think you can feel, at least I can feel the difference between, no, this is not something I want to do, and, oh, this sounds really fun, but I'm scared,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
This sounds really great, but I'm scared. That's the resistance. That's the thing you want to lean into. And that's, I think, where you know that it's a breakthrough instead of something that's holding you back. If you just know it's not for you, like, don't force yourself to do something, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense, actually. And yeah, it's fun and exciting, but I'm a bit scared and nervous. But let's do
yeah,
it.
or you make excuses, right?
Yeah, we
Like, oh,
make excuses.
nobody's going to care about my ideas. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough experience, right? All the imposter syndrome stuff that comes
Yeah,
up.
I recently took part in a filmmaking workshop,
Oh,
and
fun.
for short films. And one of the things that struck me in that was you could have a film about one of the most mundane things, but because of the way it's lit, the way the camera angles work, the way the narrative, the storyboard works, it makes it a really interesting film. And it's a similar sort of thing, right? People might think that my story is, who's going to want to know my story, but you may think your story is mundane, but actually for people around, it's going to resonate and it's going to make a difference for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a question for my next guest?
Well, I think it would be interesting to ask your next guest what piece of common business advice they completely reject.
Okay. What piece of common business advice do you completely reject? What would you say is your piece of common business advice you reject?
Well, you asked me earlier about what success looks like, and that sort of ties into that because there was a point in my business, as I think many of your listeners will really relate to, where I was just focused on scaling and growing.
Mm-hmm.
You start a business and that's what people tell you. The goal of starting a business is to scale and grow and scale and grow and scale and grow. And of course, I pursued that as well for many, many years. And then I got to a point where we had really grown quite a bit and we all hated it. We all hated it. My whole team hated it. And I realized that scaling bigger and bigger and bigger was actually not what I wanted to do. And it was not what success was going to look like for me and my business. So I reject that advice. I reject the idea that the goal of every successful business is to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right. Yeah. That's so true, because there's almost like a finite limit to certain things. And the reason you started business, because as you said, right, there was the helping others. And if you're no longer feeling connected to that because it's getting ingrained so fast, and now you're just a figurehead to the business, you're not in it. It doesn't feel so great. So I can understand that. I think for me, the bit of business advice that often kind of comes along, having worked in a kind of sales role, especially for a long time as I have, the one that says never take no for an answer. It's like
Oh,
there are
yeah.
moments when people absolutely aren't ready to buy from you, aren't ready for that product offering, and you can try and keep on drumming away at them, but accept that there are times when it's not right. So that always be closing thing, which is quite often the mantra, always be qualifying, is what you should be doing. Is this right for you? Is this the right place? Are you going in the right journey? So that's kind of my 2 pence worth of business advice to ignore, but something else to think about in its
Yeah,
place.
I like that. I like that a
Mm.
lot. Yep.
So we're nearly at the top of our time now, Ali. If people want to get in touch with you to find out more about the service you offer, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, I put together a special free gift just for your audience.
Oh, brilliant.
So
Thank you.
I'll give you the URL you'll have in the show notes, I hope. But it's offers.thewritersally.com/success matters. And what it's going to take people to is a pre-recorded evergreen webinar called Don't Write the Wrong Book. So some of the things that we've talked about, about how a book can relate to your business, the kind of people that we work with. Not every book is going to get you the results that you want for your business. This idea that all you have to do is publish any kind of book and it automatically will, up level everything you're doing is just a myth. It has to be the right book. So I
Hmm.
put together this little webinar to help people understand what that really means, what the right book is for them, and how to avoid writing the wrong book. So they can go there. And then, of course, if they already have a draft and they're actually ready to move forward, they can come to the website at thewritersally.com and fill out the contact form for a free book strategy call.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you for offering the listeners that free gift. I'll certainly have a listen to that and see what that webinar suggests, because I have a book in me as well. It's bursting to come out. So let
Wonderful.
me make sure I start on the right footing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great place to start, especially if you haven't got started yet.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Ali, for the conversation. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed the way in which you've spoken about so many different aspects about books and authoring. And yeah, books are brilliant. I see you have a few books in the background there. How big is your library at home of books?
You know what? I previously had an entire library. My last house actually had a room that was a library, and I could
Right.
not begin to count. But once you know, I moved during the pandemic into a very small cottage, and I had to get rid of probably 3/4 of my book collection. It
That
was a
must have hurt.
very hard to do. Very, very hard.
How many times did you pick up a book and think, "No, no, I can't get rid of that," and put it back
So
in the
many.
pile of
So
keep?
many. So many.
Yeah, I had a similar kind of phase. I have a very small bookcase now, but my books get rotated, and of course, electronic books have helped to reduce the
Oh,
number of
yeah,
physical
definitely.
books. But I still prefer a physical book to the electronic book. It's just there's just something about the feel of paper and reading it off paper, and the smell as well. The smell from the book.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things.
Classic.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much, Ali, and we'll share the details of the free gift and also your contact details in the show notes.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
You're welcome.
To find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.